I always had an itch I couldn't scratch in each role. I would start at the bottom of a corporate ladder and think, is this actually where I want to be? To go from commuter town to the 24/7 energy of Hong Kong, that was the culture shock. But then you get caught up in it and you realise how quickly things happen. I got speaking to the right people in Hong Kong who were in the industry, pushed my comfort zone, and it was probably the hardest time in my life. I went into it completely ignorant to what starting a business entailed, because I just thought I can take on the world here. I guess that's like founder confidence, right? Sort of unfounded founder confidence. But I thought anything was possible. In the early days, I just thought, oh, you just have to be good at sales. As long as you've got a product that works and is right for customers, then you just need to sell it. Tip of the iceberg. It's a different beast because now the consumer started to change the industry.
Yeah.
The consumer said, I want it this way. We would really dig deep into the customer's issues.
Ben Jones, thank you for coming on to the Grind Diaries podcast. Welcome along. Thanks for coming. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Excited
nice.
to have a chat. Yeah, it's going to be good. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming along. I guess for those of you that don't know, Ben and I kind of met through the industry that we work in. We sort of work in a similar industry in our kind of real life jobs.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on LinkedIn, met for a coffee, and subsequently I think we've started doing a little bit of work together, or the two businesses have started doing a little bit of work together. Which is good. We've had a few really good conversations, and over the course of the past year or two that we've been chatting, it's become quite evident that your journey's been quite interesting. So hence the reason that I thought it would be great to get you on.
Yeah.
Cool. So we kick this podcast off with the same question every week. It's just something that I find really interesting and intriguing. There's usually a huge variety in the different answers. Obviously, there's no right or wrong, but it's what is success to you? And when I kind of ask that question, it's the reason that I find that interesting is because of the fact that some people it's monetary, some people it's family life, and I'm really just kind of really interested to get into what kind of drives you, what is the reason that you do what you do, basically.
Okay. I found it a really difficult question to answer, actually, and it really got me thinking as well about what I deem sort of success. And for me, I came to the conclusion that it's not a milestone. So success is X. Success is when I have this or that, or I've reached this point or that point. I think if I can get to the point where in the later years of my life, I can look back and say yes to 3 questions, then I would deem that as successful, a successful life. So I think the first is, have I contributed to something bigger than myself? So have I been a part of something? And the second is, have I made or contributed to making people's lives better in some way, shape or form, yet to be determined? And the third one is, have I learned along the way as well, continuously? So do I feel like I've improved year on year, personally, professionally, in my relationships, my family, etc.? So has it been a sort of upward trending curve in the learning process as well? If I can say yes to those 3 things, I feel like, okay, I've done something I can be proud of. I've lived a life I can be proud of, and that for me would be success. What scares me is reaching my later years and thinking, I should have done this and I didn't do it. I should have done that. I should have said this to that person. I should have stayed in touch with this person. I should have, really gone and tried to achieve X. Those things, I think about those things a lot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's funny that you kind of say that that you're almost driven by that fear of not, of not taking the opportunities as they come. And I think we always, I mean, personally for me, I look back on a lot of things and say, I really wish that I'd seen that opportunity, and I really wish that I'd kind of taken that opportunity. And I think, we learn, don't we? We look back on those opportunities that we might have missed, or you know, we didn't even kind of try and take advantage of. And we learn that actually next time we're gonna, you know, I'm gonna actually go for that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I think I like what you said about contributing to something bigger than yourself. Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, what does that?
Yeah, I think in some shape or form, I'd like to contribute or be in a position to contribute to some of the wider sort of issues that I observe in the world generally at the moment. So things like, you know, climate and things like that, you know, it's I'd like to be in a position one day where I can make a difference there, whether that's maybe in future I'm part of another business, you know, that's involved in maybe something to do with climate change and tech and things like that, or it could be also doing something in the service of others, you know. So things like more volunteering work, right? I wish I'd done more of that in my past, you know, helping others, being at the service of others, taking more time to help others as well, you know. And I think that for me feels like contributing to the greater good. So maybe it's something environmental as an example. It could be something that helps a broader group of people. You know, I think it could be, yeah, anything to do with that really, in the support of others and just helping other people, helping, I think contributing to a cause that is, that helps something that can't help itself or people that can't help themselves, right? So whether that is, as I said, like the planet or it's other people, something like that, I think there's a sense of, I get a real sense of sort of satisfaction and inner pride from, you know, helping people and when I know I've made a difference. And for a long time, you know, especially in my younger years, it was mostly about me, you know, especially when I was starting out my career. And so I think, yeah, in my later stages, I'd like to definitely say and think, okay, I really made a difference there.
Yeah, that's
really helped some people out.
Yeah, and it kind of links into your second point, doesn't it, about actually, you know, helping people and changing, you know, making somebody's life better.
Yeah,
exactly. Quite interesting. It's quite powerful as well. That's like, you know, because it feels like that's a, you know, like a big ambition. You know, like when you talk about making fundamental changes, you know, like climate and helping a big group of people. You know, it's quite interesting that that's like a, you know, it feels like a real kind of a, you know, like a proper ambition.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about trying to get, I want to develop my career, right? You actually want to make a difference. Yeah. Which is admirable.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think we tend to get caught up in our daily lives and we don't realize how good we've got it, actually. And it's only as I've got a bit older that I've started to realize that, you know, yes, we'll complain about things, you know, typically smaller things day to day, but really we've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
And since moving to London a few years ago, I realized that there are plenty of opportunities to actually make a difference and help in, you know, there's plenty of opportunities to help people and, you know, in, challenging situations far worse than mine, right? Yeah. So, you know, I think that it's really opened my eyes actually, and being here I think is, exposed me to all kinds of potential sort of ways in which we can help, you know, volunteering, support networks, mentoring schemes, right? All these sorts of things that, you know, are opportunities here for me to contribute, and I'm keen to get involved.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I like what you say about, you know, we have got it good, right? You know, we take that for granted.
Yeah.
I find that we take that for granted a lot. I certainly do. You know, I wake up and, you know, as it stands, you know, I've got 3 super healthy kids, a great wife, and, you know, parents still around, and, you know, I've got family around me, friends around me, and yet I still, you know, you still kind of have those moments of doom and gloom, don't you? You still kind of think, oh, you know, I want to be here in my life and I want to have done this in my life. And it's quite powerful to actually stop and look back and think, hang on a minute, you know, I'm actually doing all right, you know, regardless of status or regardless of, you know, position in your career. It's the important things that are, you know, that are in place, and sometimes it's good to kind of show that gratitude, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it stems from desire and comparison. I spent a long time comparing myself to others. Okay, so I'm 38. So at 38, I should have achieved this, and if I hadn't, I'd be unhappy. And that's kind of the way I looked. By the time I'm 40, I need to have done this. And previously, that's the way I kind of approached milestones in my sort of career and life in general, really. And then, so the comparison aspect, you know, were people of my age, you know, were they in a certain position that I wanted to be in? Oh, why wasn't I there? Why am I not there yet? So I did that a lot. And also, the desire aspect, you know, especially around sort of the status symbols in modern society. Yeah. You know, the cars, houses and things like that in reality are above the, you know, the essentials of, like, you know, a home, warm home, and you know, and a car to sort of, you know, get you around and things like this. Really, I think for me they've become quite fleeting, those momentary sort of objects of desire where you get it and you go, oh, this is brilliant, and then after a while the moment's gone, the feeling's gone, and you're still, you know,
in the same place.
So then what's next?
Yeah.
Okay, bigger car. Okay, bigger house. How can I get to that? And it's just this kind of, you end up on this wheel of desire, right? And so I think I've made an effort to transition away from that mindset, and it's taken me a decade, you know, to come around to it. But I feel like I'm in a much better place now in relation to that.
Yeah, I think I've said this before on the podcast. Largely, you know, that is the motivation for me starting this podcast, because social media is a big driver of the desires that you're just talking about, right? People always will post about their nice cars and their nice holidays and their big homes, and you know, and the children of our generation are looking at this stuff thinking, yeah, I want that. But what they're not getting is they're not getting what's gone into that person being able to achieve that nice house or being able to buy that nice car, you know. And I think that was really important to me, was to kind of expose the journey, like let people know that it's not easy. Like, you see the guy driving up the road in a Ferrari, and you look at him and you think, lucky. Oh man, look at that guy.
Right.
You don't know what he's been through. We don't have a clue. Like, that guy could be, you know, as he could have the world on his shoulders for all we know. We just don't, you know. And so that was always quite important to me, you know, quite an important message to get through with regards to, you know, this podcast, was to kind of uncover those bits that, you know, let's talk about the bits that nobody ever talks about. So that, you know, I totally agree, and I think it's great that you've kind of started that journey yourself. You know, it's similar for me. Like, it's great to set yourself goals, but then we put pressure on ourselves because of those goals. And the second thing is why are we setting those goals? Like, this is something that I've come to learn that's been quite important, because what's driving the goal that you're setting yourself? And if it's not your own personal pursuit, then I think, you know, sometimes we need to go back and reset, you know, because sometimes goals can be driven by what's going on around us, right? And then that ultimately puts more pressure on, you know. So how do you kind of uncover that, make it realistic, and actually kind of reset and go again?
How often do we actually sit down and really think about what we want as well? You know, it's really easy to just drift, I think, and be pulled in different directions by things like social media. And you see the end product of the success of someone, and that's all you see.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right there that you don't see the ups and the downs and the undulations in the journey. And we're presented with that, the Ferrari. And oftentimes also I think there's a tendency to sort of see the Ferrari and go, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, that guy.
What a life.
Yeah. But, you know, no idea, as you said, right? No idea what the journey's been like. And that Ferrari is probably a byproduct of what is most likely to be a very difficult, you know, challenging journey on the way to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
100%. And then, like you say, you know, the material things that we set our sights on, what do they actually mean? You know, it's such a good feeling going out and buying a new car, you know, sitting in that car for the first time and driving it around. But like you say, a month in and it's just a car now.
Yeah.
You want the next one. You want the next model up, or, you know, you want the next big thing. So it does kind of put that into perspective a little bit. You know, those you know, these goals are great. You know, it's great to have a target, but you know, what is the meaning of that goal? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's quite interesting. Like your three things that you mentioned there. You know, that's to me that's a proper ambition. You know, it's like, you know, that's like like a life changing, or you know, for other, you know, changing other people's lives is super inspiring.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go back. Like, so obviously, you know, how you ended up to where you are today. So take us back to, like, you know, how you've kind of developed over time and what's led you to be where you are today.
So I was born in Reading but raised in northwest of England in a little town called Ormskirk, which is a commuter town of Liverpool essentially.
Okay.
My parents, myself, and one sibling, my younger brother. And you know, we were standard, you know, English sort of, you know, we weren't wealthy, weren't poor, we were, you know, fine childhood. My parents both worked in healthcare.
Oh, okay.
And if I look back, I think when I was, you know, before we spoke today, I was thinking about sort of milestones along the way that probably shaped the way I think today. They both really struggled with their jobs. They really, really disliked their jobs. And in the end, it was, you know, they both retired early due to health conditions. Dad had a heart attack, mid-30s.
Blimey.
Yeah. So it was really stressful and took its toll. And looking back, I wonder if that had an impact on me in terms of the way I've approached jobs, actually. Because I've always I've struggled with how do I put this? I've always looked to make sure that the job I do is something that I actually enjoy and want to get up out of bed for, because I saw the opposite in my parents. And I observed that, and I never wanted to sort of experience that myself. I learned from them without them telling me directly that, you know, it's important that you're part of something that you want to contribute to, and in a job that you want to, you know, you feel you can sort of make a difference, which they didn't really feel that way at the time, right? So yeah, through sort of, you know, went to school, I went to uni, and I finished university, and everybody around me was doing office jobs. They were all sort of joining graduate schemes and things like that, which is great. But that scared me a little bit, going from university, which I really enjoyed, and I've always enjoyed learning, so I think it was part of that. I really enjoyed uni. And then to see all my friends around me go straight into sort of quote unquote the corporate world, that scared me a little bit, actually. And I don't know if I'd observed something similar. Maybe it scared me because of, you know, seeing my parents being sort of put in a fixed role their entire careers, not enjoying it at all. So I looked for other options just temporarily. And the opportunity to move to Hong Kong came up, and it was teaching for a year. So I teach for 10 months in Hong Kong, teach English. And I thought, okay, yeah, I could do that. Okay, travel a little bit. Parents had always pushed myself and my brother to get out and travel and things like that. So, okay, it's pretty good. Signed up for that. Moved there and just fell in love with the city. Amazing, unbelievable.
How did that come about?
So myself and a friend from our hometown, we ended up in the same uni together, and he called me up one day, and there was an email in our inbox, student inbox, Teach English Overseas. He said, "Do you fancy it?" Yeah, actually, we'll give it a go. We'll do the 10 months, and then we'll come back to England, and then we'll get proper jobs. Then we'll do what we're supposed to do. But we'll just have this gap, right? Get a bit of experience overseas. And did an interview online. We got the roles, flew over there, and they sort of put us in schools in Hong Kong to teach English. And it was good, actually. I did feel like I was contributing there to something. You know, the English teaching, I got a lot of satisfaction from that. But it wasn't quite me. There was still something that there was, I couldn't see myself staying as a teacher. And in Hong Kong, because it's such a business hub, you're exposed to like business. It's one of the few cities in the world, like London, like New York, where you just feel like you're the center of commerce globally. Yeah. Things just swirl around that hub, right? And things happen quickly there. So I thought, okay, this is pretty interesting. And I'd always have my eye on shipping because it ticked a few boxes for me in terms of a potential career. Move around the world, so travel a little bit, kept me interested, and the global aspect of it interested me as well. So be part of a sort of a global business. And I got speaking to basically the right people in Hong Kong who were in the industry, pushed my comfort zone and sort of reached out a little bit and got speaking to them, and lo and behold, I sort of ended up in shipping and logistics in Hong Kong, and that was great. And I started at a very large company, did about 4 years there, and then I moved subsequently to smaller companies in succession. But I started to feel like that corporate environment with the fixed sort of the structure didn't sit too well with me. That was just a personal feeling, really. So I started to see the rise in e-commerce and how that impacted the logistics and shipping industry, and the role that technology played in that. I had a hand in helping sort of bring technology into a couple of the companies that I worked at, and so and then I started to see gaps in the industry that needed to be filled and could be filled with technology. And so over the course of sort of the next few years, I got involved in myself and another partner kind of building solutions around like warehousing and fulfillment and that kind of stuff with a tech backbone. And that period I've just described there was 13 years, basically. Wow. Yeah, so we were out there a while. And then eventually that led to the founding and getting together of the group we have today, which became sort of Moddule, which is the company that three, myself and two different co-founders began. But it's been a bit of an interesting journey. And I think to go back to the parent thing, I think their approach to work really had an interesting influence on me. I always had an itch I couldn't scratch in each role. I felt like I was, I would start at the bottom of a corporate ladder and think, is this actually where I want to be? Do I want to stay here? And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But for me, I just thought, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's something different. And I wonder if that's pushed me in the direction of the sort of entrepreneurial aspect of what I've been doing, really.
So when you talk about your parents that worked in healthcare and they just didn't like what they were doing, Was that something that you spoke about, or was it just something that you picked up from their behaviours?
Yeah, it was. No, we never spoke about it, but it was observed. And I think as a child, you're a sponge, aren't you? And but so when my dad had the heart attack, I was 10 years old. So I remember my brother and I sitting in A&E, like waiting for it. I think that must have had an impact on us, And it was partly lifestyle based, as they usually are, but it was also, he was really, really stressed constantly by work. And so that we observed it, and my mum as well, she would dread going into work. She'd never, get up in the morning and think, right, we're going to tackle the day. It was a slog. Work was a slog, and so, yeah, we never spoke about it, but myself and my brother, we observed it, we were exposed to it. I can't quite pinpoint if that is the source of, everything that's happened, but I do think, thinking back, it's probably had quite a strong influence. And I wonder if that was the driver to eventually want to start my own thing, obviously with others, right? With other co-founders. But yeah.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? What is, like your parents clearly took on those roles so they could support you and your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always wonder, like, what impact would it have had if they did something for less money that they really enjoyed? How would that have impacted your upbringing, and how would that have impacted your life? And it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because you'll never know.
Yeah.
But my parents have always just led a comfortable life. My mum's always worked in the school kind of cooking industry. She progressed through that, and my dad was literally a lorry driver from the age of 21. He's now like late 60s, and he's still he's retired, but he still goes back and does little bits, but it's just because that's what they love to do, and it's it was quite strange how that probably affected the way I am now, because I saw two people that worked and just worked for a really comfortable life, and that is exactly what they achieved. They've retired, they go traveling all the time, and that's exactly what they wanted. And I always felt like I wanted to do more than that. Like, I wanted to push myself, and I wanted to constantly grow. And I don't, again, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because I don't know whether that was an effect of being in a environment of just comfort and just and then just kind of wanting to come out and be wanting to kind of push on a little bit more. It's quite interesting.
Maybe it's a generational thing as well, because I wonder if that generation, their aspiration was home, safe home for the kids, raise the kids well, good home environment, get a stable job, stay in that job. Jobs then were your entire career, weren't they? One role, one company, stay there. Not anymore, but but now I wonder if our generation we've been raised with a sort of anything's possible kind of attitude based on the foundation that our parents gave us. Oh, here's the safe upbringing, sort of all post-war times, right, where it was pretty good, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then upon that foundation we grew up with, this is pretty good, what's next? Maybe it's, I don't know, but maybe it's something to do with that as well, that safe foundation on which we can go, anything's possible. I don't know, different mindset, I think.
Strange, isn't it? But it's quite what I've really enjoyed having these conversations is like how we don't really think of our upbringing as being that relevant to who we are today, but actually, like, when we just in the discussions I've had on these podcasts, it's really evident that it really does kind of shape you in so many different ways as well. And two people can have exactly the same upbringing, and one person can go one way and one person can go the other, but that upbringing has still shaped, do you know what I mean, like the way that they've perceived and the way that they've kind of moved on has definitely had an impact and an effect. So I've really enjoyed talking about that, actually.
It's interesting. My brother, so obviously raised in the same household, right, same parents, went to the same schools, military.
Really?
Yeah. So from the age of 16, so I went to university and then sort of, corporate route to begin with, and overseas. Stayed in England, went into military at 16, did 2 subsequent tours, and look at that route.
Completely.
Complete contrast. Where does that come from? Right. So to your point, it's interesting, and even in the same household, just 2 siblings to go like this is.
I find it quite fascinating how, like I say, we almost have this background that shaped us, but for no particular reason. Do you know what I mean? Like we, as you've just pointed out, 2 people being brought up in the same household have clearly been inspired in some way, shape, or form by your parents, and yet you've both kind of gone in different directions.
Yeah,
it's mad.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so when I'd like to talk about a bit more about Hong Kong, because I'm quite interested in that. How did you find the culture, and how did you adapt to that kind of lifestyle? Because it is a lot different to living in the UK, right?
Yeah. Culturally, it was it was a big culture shock. But Hong Kong is the perfect blend of sort of East meets West. That's why it's such a great business hub. It's an international city, so it's easy to converse there and do business there and live there. But it's the energy of the place that was the culture shock for me. So to go from commuter town and I'd never lived in London by that point or anywhere else really busy, to go from that to the 24/7 energy of Hong Kong, that was the culture shock. But then you get caught up in it and it's amazing. And you realise how quickly things happen and how quickly decisions are made and people get together very quickly, right? And it's geographically very small. So you can meet someone in 15, 20 minutes, right, when you decide to meet. And so that makes a huge difference. And so there's a serendipity about it as well, because you're more likely to bump into people, rub shoulders with people. I really got caught up and I fell in love with that aspect of it. And I guess because I went young, I was just open to anything. So at the time, I didn't have a partner. So there was no sort of family to take with me. So the transition was really easy. I almost took it as like the same way, in a way, a backpacker would, right? You just kind of drift with the wind a little bit in the early days. When we went over there, there was 3 of us sharing a tiny apartment. It was so small, we had to cut the mattresses to the shape of the bedroom floor. It was tiny. 2 windows in the whole place, so no natural sunlight. I mean, it was teeny tiny. But it was brilliant in a way as well, because we just threw ourselves into it. And I think that, thinking back, has been like a theme throughout my life, really, that sort of pushing the comfort zone, throwing myself into something, and seeing what happens and allowing serendipity to kind of just take place. I think as long as you're sort of in the right environment to be lucky, it helps a lot. So I'm not saying that luck is everything, but if I was at home in the town I grew up in, I just wouldn't have been exposed to the same number of opportunities that had I been in London or Hong Kong in this example, right? Just being in that environment, I think, being there and working there and living there, you end up just kicking up enough dust where things start to naturally happen, I think. And that's one of the great things about Hong Kong. Things do naturally happen if you put yourself in the right position. Yeah. Actually, anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really good point, actually, because I'm not sure I believe in the term lucky from a career aspect or a career perspective, because you've got to be putting yourself into the position to get these opportunities and to spot these opportunities, right? And how much luck is involved? How much luck is it that you feel like you want something, so you put yourself into a position where you could potentially get that, and then an opportunity comes along and you take it. You know, we call that lucky. We call it, oh, I had a lucky break, but I'm not convinced that it is. I'm not convinced that it is luck. I think we make our own luck, and I'm a great believer of that. You know, somebody said, I heard on another podcast recently, like, how many red cars did you see on your way to the studio today? And you know, you've probably seen a few, but you have no idea. Okay, but if somebody said to you, right, Ben, on your way to the studio today, I'm going to give you £10 for every red car you see, you're going to spot those red cars, right? And that's opportunities. You know, and that's you know, that's kind of my theory on luck in a, you know, in a commercial or a career environment. I feel like, you know, the opportunities are there. It's whether or not we go out and look for them and hunt them down and take them. So yeah, it's quite
definitely. I think you're absolutely spot on, actually. But probably think back to the times that I deem myself lucky in particular situations. Well, actually, it's usually the result of a sequence of events that have brought me to that place. I know exactly what you mean.
So then you're in Hong Kong. You know, you've kind of got yourself into this shipping and logistics environment. How do you go from, because I'm assuming you're still relatively young at this point, how do you go from, you know, working in that environment to thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to do my own thing here?
I started speaking to more and more. I started speaking and listening more to customers. And the logistics industry, because it's remained unchanged for a long time, right? Moving a container around the world, as an example, right? It's a pretty standard, straightforward process. And that process has been in place since the 70s. But if you speak to customers, basically you have to fit into the way the industry works. But oftentimes, I would speak to customers and they wished there was an alternative way to do certain things that have just been the accepted way things work, right? So without getting sort of too industry technical, so my background was building and creating sort of warehouse networks around the world. So if you take a brand, right, and you take a high street clothing brand and they say, yeah, we want to sell in China and Singapore and Australia, you need warehouses in each of those locations, right? And as you know, an order's packed from that warehouse and then it's shipped, right, to someone's doorstep. But the typical way the industry worked, and still does to a certain extent, is that those warehouses all operate different systems. And the data in those warehouses is all kind of siloed, right? It's all the brand has to view it individually with individual logins and manage spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff. There's really no like overall view of what's going on, right? I thought this can't be, it can't be right that you just can't see what's going on in one single place. That's ridiculous, right? But it seemed to be the case, and it seemed to be the standard, and all the brands, the companies, they just accepted it. Well, that's just the way it is. And so I started to this got the wheels in my head turning, right? There must be an alternative to this. And you know, I started to look at how can technology sort of be leveraged to solve this issue and things like that. And with the rise in e-commerce, that's what really pushed the boundaries on this kind of side of the industry, because before that it was just, you know, you ship products to a store, and supply chains were they were basically product driven, right? You go to a store, you want to buy a black t-shirt, it's large, medium or small, and if they don't have it, you just have to go home, right? Yeah. That's it, right? But now it's, I want it in black, I want it in blue, I want it in 3 sizes, I want it delivered tomorrow, and I want to be able to return it for free. And all of that drove the sort of that e-com really pushed the boundaries, because then the consumer, not the product, the consumer started to change the industry.
Yeah.
The consumer said, I want it this way. And that's when it started to change. And so that then all sort of came together at the right time, where we sort of to think about, okay, maybe we can start something here, right? And it really started myself and one partner at the time, connecting these networks together, with a guy we knew at the time who could, a tech guy who helped us with the technology, right? And we were offering those sort of warehousing services to brands. So we would say, hey, oh yeah, you need multiple warehouses. We've got them actually across this region. You can leverage them if you want. And we're trying to solve this issue. Are you interested? And a few of them were like, oh yeah, pretty good. But it was a struggle. There's only a couple of us involved, and it was a real challenge. And it was probably the hardest time in my life, because I went into it completely ignorant to what starting a business entailed. But that went through various sort of iterations over the years, and we ran that for a few years. And that eventually led us to meeting the right people under the right circumstances, whereby a different set of people came in, and we could eventually found the company, a new company, together to try and bring tech to the logistics industry and just make it easier for companies to just see what's going on in one place. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So did you kind of start building this up and building this idea before you left full-time employment, or was it a conscious decision to go, right, I'm going for this?
Yeah, it was. It was a conscious decision, and it was a line in the sand. It was a stop. It was a quit the job and then try and do something myself. Very, very. When I first quit, it was like, oh my, this is amazing. This is absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a feeling of freedom. It was like it was just. I remember I was at a bus stop in Hong Kong on the way back from my final day at work, traditional work, and I was like, this is amazing. This feeling of like freedom, but it was ignorance, right? Because I just thought, I take on the world here. This is going to be amazing. I can do anything. And I guess that's like founder confidence, right? Sort of unfounded founder confidence. But I thought anything was possible. And then obviously the reality of running a business, finances, bookkeeping, managing customers, sales, all this kind of stuff all then started to come together, and it was a real challenge. It was really difficult.
Did you ever worry about kind of being able to live, making sure you had enough money coming in? Was that ever a concern?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, it was. And I, in the early days, I spent my savings on it, right? I spent my savings supporting myself as well in the beginning. But I was okay with that, and I don't know why. Maybe it was because I had fewer responsibilities. If I had children, or a huge bank balance, right, that I could fall back on. Or no, sorry, let me take that back. If I had children, and more people relying on me and a larger bank balance, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But again, I was, I kind of threw myself into it, and I always had I kept my eye on the fact that, if it doesn't work, I can go back to what I was doing. Maybe not the same company, but I can go back, right? It's always going to be there. And again, why wouldn't, I thought, well, I've got to try it. I've got to give it a go. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and that's kind of, but that's something that was often at the back of my mind. Yeah. There's the financial side of it.
It is a fascinating lesson, to be honest, about doing these things at the right time, because you know, you're young, you know, inexperienced in terms of the commercial world, or less experienced than people that are older.
Yeah.
But like you say, you haven't got those responsibilities, and I think it's such an important message because, you know, I'm guilty of being young, you know, not having responsibilities, having loads of ideas, and always had this aspiration of running my own company and doing my own thing, and never acted on it. And when I think back, it's due to, you know, the fear of failure, the same as everybody else, but also not knowing what to do, and not having the guts just to go, oh, I'm going to go for it and find my way, you know, that never even entered my mind. So yeah, as I say, I feel like it's such an important lesson to be in a position where you know, the impact of you not succeeding is so much less. You know, you haven't got as much riding on it. It frees you up to enable you to feel the way you did about that particular journey.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think you've got to have that attitude of, I can take the world on. You know, I think you've got to, haven't you? Otherwise, would you have ever done it?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, well, no, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't. I guess it's almost like, is it arrogance in a way that you can just do anything? Yeah, I know what I'm doing, and therefore you go, so I'm going to do it, right? Maybe it is, because the more I did it, the more I realised I don't know anything. But yeah, I think...
I don't know. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's probably more confidence than arrogance, because if it was arrogance, then my opinion is that you wouldn't have learnt from your mistakes along the way.
True.
Arrogance is, you know, is I know what I'm doing, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. Whereas confidence is, I'm going to go for this. Yeah. You know, and I know what I'm doing, and then you get to a point and you're like, actually, do I?
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, so again, you know, you know, I kind of wish that I had that at that age, that you know, that confidence to go, why not?
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, the more in the company that we have now, right, which is Moddule, which we started in 2022, that has exposed me to experts and people with you know, experience and who've been through the trenches and things like that. And the more I interact with them, the more I realise how little I actually know, you know, and how much I've been learning as well along the way. You know, and it was a good lesson. You know, the early stages of the previous sort of venture I needed to go through that process. I think I needed to go through that struggle to really understand, I think, myself, and also whether I actually was it something I actually wanted to do? Do I really want to do this, or, you know, or not? And I'm thankful as well that it's enabled me to get to this point, so that I'm now in a position where I'm exposed to these experts, and wow, do we learn a lot, right, from them. It's amazing to see, and yeah, it's just so interesting. I think it's like, if I was to, I don't know, I feel like I equate it to like boxing. If you first start boxing, you think, I could do this pretty good, and then you start boxing and you get a proper trainer, or you spar with someone who can actually box, and you're like, oh actually I don't know anything, you know. So it's but that's the part I really enjoy as well, that learning process and being exposed to that kind of people.
Yeah. Again, you know, do you ever feel at your depth in those situations, or do you you know, do you take from it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do I feel on my depth? I wouldn't necessarily say out of my depth. But you know, I certainly feel sometimes like the person who knows the least in the room.
It's good that you're comfortable with that. Like, I that's a real value. That's a real quality, I think. Okay. Because it's so easy, isn't it, to, you know, I've been in situations where I've walked in thinking that I know a decent amount about a certain subject, and you go into a meeting and you're like, oh, no, I really hope they don't ask me a question,
Yeah.
you know? And I think, again, like, I think it's perhaps a bit of a confidence thing, or maybe even a, you know, because you're in a position where it's almost like imposter syndrome, right? You sort of feel like, oh, I'm not sure I'm on this level.
Yeah.
But rather than feeling like the imposter, rather than feeling out your depth, what you're saying is that you're like, I need to learn from these people, man. I need to get what I can and like really kind of understand it.
Yeah. I think it's a privilege to be in that situation, because to be in a position where you're surrounded by people smarter than you, I think is a real, like, that should be taken advantage of, and don't shrink away from it. You know, I think that's the only way you're going to grow. You know, if everybody around me knows exactly what I know to the level I know it, how am I going to keep learning and progressing? And to go back to one of the points that I deem success for me at the end of my life is, have I continually learned? You know, and I'm only going to do that by exposing myself to these situations with people who are far more experienced or smarter than I am, I think. And, you know, when I read about other sort of, well, just if I read about successful people in general in business, for example, they always say you should surround yourself with people smarter than yourself.
Yeah.
They always say that, right? So, you know, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decent. Did you ever, in the early days, get to a point where you were wondering if you'd made the right decision?
Oh yeah, a lot, a lot. You know that, yeah, all the time. And my partner, because I've had this, you know, in the past, and I've had, you know, you sort of on the journey, you come home from work, you know, and you sometimes do. I've sort of, maybe I'll have a bit of a moan to my partner and talk to her about it and things like that, you know. And that paycheck is really seductive. You know, the monthly paycheck is so seductive. And when I talk about this, it is in no way to put down working at a company. It really isn't, right? So I'm only, this is just, you know, personally the way I feel, but that paycheck is so seductive, and it's tempting at times to go, you know, or it has been previously, right? Especially in the early days, mostly in the early days, it's like really tempted to think, oh, yeah, shall I just go back? You know, decent salary there, you know, in the shipping industry and things like that, and, you know, pretty comfortable. Yeah, I could have, you know, a good life, but I don't know, that sting of regret always sort of resonated, you know, and I thought, no, I'll just give it a bit longer. I'll just give it a bit longer. I'm close. And then you sign your first customer up, and you're like, oh, it's going to be okay. Well, I'll just get one more, and we'll see where we get to, right? We'll just get 5 more. Okay. Oh, all right, you know. And then before you know it, you know, it just starts to compound and build from there, and you know, it looks like you're starting to build something, you know, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's hardest in the early days because you're not that far from the life you left.
Yeah.
You can still see it, you know, in your rear view mirror. It's like, it's there, and you think, oh, I could just, yeah, I'll go back to that, you know. I think, so it's tempting, yeah, for sure.
It's like a comfort trap.
Yeah. And all the trappings are there, right?
Yeah.
So you got obviously like the salary and things like that, but all the trappings that come with that comfort, like we discussed at the beginning of this conversation, so that the objects, right, the comfortable living situation, the car, all those trappings come with that situation, you see, and that, so it's not just a paycheck, it's actually a life that you can have as well. And it's like, oh, that looks really good. That looks really good. So
yeah. What was the motivation then to stay? You know, what was the motivation for you to go, you know, I want to do something, and, you know, you're kind of turning your back on that kind of comfort, that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Where did you know, what motivated you to do that?
I was quite scared of being unhappy and seeing my parents unhappy in their jobs. That worried me, you know. I was scared of that, and I think it's just seeing what it did to them. I just think I didn't want that for myself. And you know, I don't know whether I just wasn't in the right job, and maybe at another company I would have thrived, you know, and been the happiest I've, you know, happier than I am, right? I don't know, but I just think, yeah, I wasn't particularly excited about the role I was in at the time when I left it, and that, going back to that, was, that scared me a little bit. And then the regret side of things as well. But it's easy, again, we go back to, it's easy for me to say these things when I didn't have anybody else depending on me.
Yeah.
It's a very privileged position. But yeah, I think the distinct regret I was also concerned about as well. And I just viewed it as give it a go. I'll just give it a go, you know?
It's quite, it's become really apparent in the conversations I've had on these podcasts that fear is a huge factor, you know, and I've always viewed fear as a negative thing, you know. Oh, I'm scared about doing that, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay away from it. But actually, the conversations that I've had recently, it's the fear that's pushed people on. The fear of not wanting to get trapped in the corporate bubble. You know, the fear of, you know, I was chatting to a lifestyle coach on here a few weeks back, and he talks about how his fear of failure is so strong that he can't fail because he's so driven by that fear that that's what gets him to push through. And it's quite fascinating, really, about how, you know, how that fear is kind of turning into a bit of a motivator.
Yeah, I guess in a way it's stronger than the drive of sort of opportunity, really, in a way. Yeah, because it is strong, right? It's really strong. And I guess it's different for different people. But yeah, for me it ran quite deep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I you know, again, like, I think about why I started this podcast, you know. And there are reasons, personal reasons, you know. We discussed earlier, I'd like to one day write a book about everything that's been discussed on the podcast, and that was the kind of theory behind it. But, you know, why did I actually want to go out and do it? Well, I guess it's just the, you know, again, it's almost like a fear. I want to, you know, inspire the kids. My kids are at an age now where I want to kind of inspire them, and I guess, you know, it is driven by a fear of being 60, 70 years old, looking back and being like, I really didn't give enough, you know. I really didn't, and I really didn't fulfill the opportunities that I could have done. And I guess in a roundabout way, you know, although I don't really think of it as a fear, I think of it as a, you know, this is why I want to inspire these children. I want to, you know, I want to do the things that I aspire to do. But actually, it probably is a deep-rooted fear of getting to an age, looking back and being like, oh, I didn't do it. Yeah. You know, it's quite powerful.
It is quite powerful. One thing I have thought about is, when I have children, how does that shape my motive? How will that shape my view of success as well? Maybe it'll change. Maybe it will fall more in line with, you know, what you deem to be, you know, successful in your life, as we previously sort of, you know, talked about. I think having children, having people solely relying on you, I wonder, I can't relate at this stage because I don't have my own children, but, you know, I think, ask me in 5 years what I deem success to be. It could be something, you know, maybe there's an extra point on there to the 3 that I've already described, right? Which is something I've also thought about.
Something that we've covered a lot on this podcast as well is that, I mean, I think I've said it before, I literally didn't care about a career. Didn't bother me one little bit until the day my son was born. and then it was like, okay, now I've got somebody else relying on me now,
Yeah.
and it's changed everything.
Right.
And to this day, it does. I wonder, who would I be if I didn't have children? It's quite a scary thought, to be honest.
Right.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to to kind of have a conversation once you've got that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm pretty certain that that for me, certainly it changed everything. All right, so you started you left your job, you started a company with a friend or an associate. You ran that for a little while, and then I think you said 3 or 4 years later.
That took us to we sort of, that was the kind of trial run really, and then in June 2022 we founded Moddule.
So how did that come about?
We were just a group of people from similar backgrounds in industry who knew each other, and I guess there was we aligned on a shared understanding that the industry as it stands today doesn't necessarily serve customers in the best way. It's quite rigid and fixed in the way it works, but it isn't necessarily what benefits the customer most. So we aligned on that, and how technology could shake up the industry and things like that. In a similar way, actually, to the organisation you're with, and that kind of with an eye on e-com and B2C in the beginning at least. And so we founded that, and we had industry, had sort of expert industry knowledge now at that point, coming on board with us, and people involved who on the board and things like that who had experience, right? That was all new to me at the time as well, like a board and people with who'd been through, built businesses and sold businesses and that sort of stuff. So that started June 2022, and that's been a great journey, still with its challenges, of course, but it's a different beast, because now it's structured in the right way, and it's bringing the right people together to make a company successful. Because in the early days, I just thought, you just have to be good at sales. As long as you've got a product that is that works and is right for customers, then you just need to sell it. Tip of the iceberg. Yes, that helps, but tip of the iceberg. And so I really have an appreciation for the company we have, because it's about bringing the best people together, or the right people together, and in the right environment, and culturally creating this company from the ground up that is set up for success, rather than my previous venture. I felt like we were sort of, it was good, but it was not quite as structured. Yeah.
So how did it kind of come about? Like, where did the conversation start about starting up Moddule?
Us as the founders had always, well, not always, but we knew each other and from the industry and things like that. And it was partially, I think, just the conversation came about. I think, it's a good question actually, Ant. We all had, but it was, I think we were just talking about the role of tech in the industry, the role of e-com in the industry, and I think a desire to make a change in it as well, and speak the language of the customer. We felt like no one was speaking the language of the customer in the industry. They were speaking the language of the industry. So it was born out of that kind of conversation, really. And it's still, it's only June 2022, right? So it's not that it's not that old, right? So there's still, so we are still we're growing, and we're still shaping the product and the direction we take it, and we're still innovating and listening to customers, and things like that, to make sure that we are building something that's set up for sustainable success, right? Not just built on an idea. We think, oh, this is going to work. So we've really taken the time to understand the customers and their pain points and their challenges, and then built a product around that. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's, similar to the company I work for as well.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that company was born, was, looking where the problems are, where the gaps are, and providing a solution.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Definitely.
What would you say the kind of, your main challenges since starting the company?
Main challenges. Originally, we started out three of us as founders, all with similar commercial backgrounds. So it took us a while to find the right fit to lead the tech side of things. So that was a challenge, but we have that now. So we've sort of ticked that box, which is brilliant. I think educating customers on the fact that there is an alternative to the way things currently work. Because what I often talk about is the fact that if we were selling a solution that people just recognized out of the box because they could compare it to something in their mind's eye, it would be, I think, a lot more straightforward than, I think there's a bit of an education process with this. Because you have to show them that there's an alternative to the way things currently work. And I'm sure you probably see it in a similar way with the organization you're at, which is there's an education process around first showing them, hey, what are your challenges? Okay, there is a solution to that. You don't necessarily need to go down the route that you think you need to go down. There's a potential solution that actually is going to work pretty well. So, the example I sometimes use, and I don't know if it's the right example, but internally I say to guys, if we were selling insurance, in a way, it's more straightforward.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone knows, health insurance, yeah, I get that. You just have to offer something better. But yeah, I think because we're shaking up an industry, as you have been exposed to as well, that in itself is sometimes a challenge. But once they understand it and they're on board, customers are like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But yeah, the sort of the preamble to lead to that point is sometimes a bit of a challenge.
I guess, especially in your industry where people have been doing the same thing for the last 50 odd years, I suppose it is quite difficult to get that message through that there's something new on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you kind of approach that? How do you kind of get around it?
Yeah, I think for us, we just had to make sure we lead with the customer's issues, because by leading with the challenges and the issues that we have, that they have, that we knew that was most likely to get their attention. If we had created a product and then thrown it into the market and gone, look at what we've made, customers have been like, well, what's that? Oh, I don't get it. It doesn't, okay, I'm going to make a call on it. It's not a fit for me. But by leading with those customer issues, we knew that there were people out there who had those issues that this would resonate with, where customers be like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh, I have that problem. What's the solution then? Right. So there was a real focus on that. And we really, it sounds simple, but what we did was we just spoke to customers and we would really dig deep into their issues. So what does your day-to-day look like? Tell me about your day-to-day.
Yeah.
When do you arrive? What do you do? How do you work on a daily basis? And what are the bottlenecks? What are the visceral pains that really wind you up? Okay, right. So let's take those issues, and then we would lead customer conversations with those. And we'd say, oh, hey, we work with X company, and they tend to tell us that they have challenges with this, and this. Does that sound like you? Sometimes it's no, but sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Okay, then maybe let's talk. So it was that really. So rather than try and shake up an industry by going, here's a product, there you go, it was where, you know, we might have just been dismissed.
Yeah.
It's more a case of understanding the customer, actually.
Quite, yeah, needs-based kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going deep on it, right? What are the real pains? Not just the surface level pains. Trying to go as deep as possible, and sometimes asking uncomfortable questions to customers. But in the end, you know, it makes the product and the solution better.
Yeah. So how has the business developed since you first started it? Like, you know, what's the kind of the life of the company?
So the product itself has gone through sort of various iterations and based on customer feedback and things like that. And then when the three of us co-founded it, we then brought in sort of, you know, experts from various. So we've got, you know, like people in marketing, people on the tech and development side, experts in their respective areas, really, to help us sort of build this, to join us on this journey and help us build a product that is, you know, intended to be here for a long time. As I said, you know, it was 2022 when we started it, so it's still in it. You know, we're always kind of listening for feedback and still shaping it. But in terms of the actual journey, it's taken. You know, we got we were successful bringing on customers. You know, we're headquartered in Denmark, but it's an international company. We're spread throughout the world. The team, and we you know, as are our customers. But you know, there's quite a focus at the moment on the UK and sort of Northern Europe, but yeah, and it's continuing to grow. It's on an exciting journey because we keep adding people that are, you know, as I said, experts, right, in relative areas. So it's really satisfying to see these people want to join us on this journey as well, because it shows that obviously, you know, they're excited by what we're building, but also it's an opportunity for all of us as you know, co-founders to kind of learn and be exposed to these people. Yeah, it's good.
And it sounds like you're enjoying that journey.
Yeah, it you know, it always comes with its challenges, of course, but yeah, we all are, and yeah, I'm learning a lot, which again is, you know, something really important to me. And as the team grows and the company grows, I really feel like we are sort of contributing to something that's, you know, that's bigger than the sort of ourselves individually, right? So yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. Yeah,
wicked. That's amazing. All right, three quick fire questions for you.
Yeah.
Again, we just ask these. It's interesting to get the different answers. So, what three things do you think have got you to where you are today?
I think the resilience from my parents. Yeah, the grit and resilience from them. I think my willingness to push my comfort zone and put myself in uncomfortable situations, and for my partner as well. The support of my partner has been very important. It's not easy living with somebody in you know, who's sort of co-founder or co-founders, they could be a challenge to live with, I think, at times. So the support and understanding of my partner and my, you know, my family around me as well has been part of the reason I'm able to do what I do.
It's interesting, actually, because again, we've had this conversation a few times about support. You know, and I think I said it in one of the other podcasts, but how important is it for when you're coming up with ideas or you're coming up with a new thing that you want to do, for your partner to be like, have that belief, you know, and that's, you know, yeah, you should do it. You know, I just think, you know, if my wife turned around to me and went, don't know if you should do that podcast thing, it'd be a bit crap, I don't think I'd have done it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would have done it. Like, if somebody outside of, my family said it,
Yeah.
then I probably wouldn't listen because, I'm quite strong-minded. But your partner, somebody that, that knows you probably better than anyone else.
Yeah.
To say, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Not offer the support. It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah. It's huge. Yeah. Absolutely. And on the flip side, to say, you can do it when you don't think you can. Right. That's the other, that's no, you can do this. You've got it. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Come on. I'm here. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's
such a motivator, isn't it?
Massive. And they're on the journey with you, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, in a way, I sometimes feel like, my partner's exposed to almost the same journey that I'm going through. And so, to have someone that close to you who understands the journey and therefore can support you on that it's massive. And I don't think I could have done it alone. I don't think. No.
Yeah, powerful. Would you have changed anything along the way if you could?
I think I just would have helped more people along the way in my earlier years. I think I would have been quicker to, help support and refer people around and help be this kind of person that brings people together and helps like create that look for them. I think, and that's one of the reasons I think I want to contribute more to the success of others or help people who are in less fortunate circumstances. I want to be able to do that. I think in my younger years I think I should have looked back, I would have helped others more, I think.
Why do you think you didn't?
It wasn't a conscious decision not to. I just think I was more focused on my own journey.
Yeah. So it's more of a conscious thing to help them now than it was.
Yeah. Because if the more you help others, I find the more you're helped, and also more opportunities sort of come your way, and again this sort of serendipitous aspect of it, it helps, right? The more you help people, I think the more we all do, it's just the world's a better place. And I think I just should have paid more attention to that fact, but I only learned that with experience, I think. But yeah, so I think it wasn't a conscious decision not to help people, but now it's just a more conscious decision. Okay, I'm gonna, if somebody reaches out to me and says, "Oh, can you help me with this?" I'm more like, I'll jump straight on it, right, and help support them. The younger version of me, I think, would have just been quite singular, focused on getting to where I wanted to go.
Yeah, you think it's a maturity thing?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so as well. Because again, like similarly, I'm far more open to wanting to inspire, motivate, support other people than I would have been 15 years ago.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Where are you going next on your journey?
So we'll continue to build our company, our startup into the great company that we want it to be, and we'll continue on that journey. I'll continue sort of building my entrepreneurial muscle and learning a lot along the way, and hopefully we'll. The intention is to achieve some great things and learn a lot. So we'll continue doing what we're doing and enjoying the journey as well. Yeah.
Where can people find more information about your business?
So our website is moddule.com. That's moddule.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, right? So Ben Jones on LinkedIn as well. And Modules on LinkedIn as well. Probably the best places.
Yeah, excellent. It's been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. We've uncovered some truly inspiring, stuff that we've discussed, and I think I've learned a lot from you already. Like the kind of travel aspect, that kind of, just being inquisitive enough and being able just to kind of jump in and really focus on one thing and go for it, I think, you know, it's really inspiring. So
Thanks, Sam.
really appreciate you coming
Thank you.
along.
And thanks very much for having me. It's been brilliant.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yo, check it out. It's the Grind Diaries podcast where we share all our hustling stories. Yeah, from the struggles to the grind, we spill it on the mic, so sit back, relax.